3, 2, 1. Fragments of Silicon, the best kind of downloadable content.
Welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam, and joining me, as always, is the crew.
Oh man, I get to be crew.
I'm like, would you rather be the minions?
No.
Please, God, no.
Because then I'd have to be way more vocal about the fact that I like bananas.
Duly noted. Anyway, rest of the cast here, Golix.
Hello.
Eddie Fan.
Yo.
Ogre.
Number 1, open fire on the Borg.
Okay, and Twilight.
Hello.
All right, let's see who to start with. Ogre, let's go with you this week.
Well, let's see. Next week is going to be busy as all hell. So this week is finally our little yearly vacation up to the lake, which we've all been looking forward to. It'll be nice to go up there for once. Well,
Like that one in Ohio?
it's Lake Erie, yeah.
Ah.
So, going up there early Friday, probably be there around the afternoon. It's still like a 3-hour trip there, so we'll make it. We always make it. But let's see. I got these little Mega Man helmets the other day.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
I saw Capcom selling them, and I was like, you know what? I want these. They're about $20. I think I'll get them.
$20 for the set?
Like a wearable helmet, or?
No. They're little mini helmets.
Yeah, Loot Crate had them a while back.
They come in 5 different colors. You got the regular Mega Buster. You got Leaf Shield, Quick Boomerang, Lead Bubble or Lead Bubble.
Bubble lead,
and Rush, or Item, whatever.
I feel like they reuse a lot of the colors anyway.
The Item one's about the only one I can think of. I think they're usually pretty good about making sure they don't double up on colors.
Like, not in the same game, but like in different games.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's see. Other than that, what else was gonna say? I've got a dentist appointment tomorrow, just before a vacation. Thankfully, it's all just routine cleaning stuff now, so...
And then you find out you need more dentures. And the dentist gets punched.
At that point, they'd just be ripping out the rest of my teeth, and other than that, they'd just be getting a new set of dentures for me. Then after that, probably get a haircut afterwards, just so I'm have a haircut for the weekend and the subsequent wedding weekend.
Oh man.
Because this shit's gonna be busy next week.
Running around like a chicken with your head cut off.
Not much for me, but for Naka and Barry, it's definitely gonna be very much a last minute, okay, let's make sure everything's set up. Oh my god. No, we've forgotten something.
Why didn't we just do this at the courthouse?
We forgot Kevin at home.
I hope they enjoy my wedding gift that I sent them.
I'm pretty sure they will.
Like, it was Bionic Commando 2009. I wanted to get them rearmed, but they already Naga already had rearmed. So
Don't ask me. Let's see. Other than that, not much else going on. I think I'm starting to lose my taste for 14 right now, so I'm on and off on that.
Is that legal?
Yeah, it is legal because I paid so I can do it.
I thought you like had a sole mortgage agreement with Square Enix that you had to like everything they do.
No, not really.
Well, no, it's more we're between patches right now. Literally, all there is left to do is beat the Omega Savage, and then we're pretty much done on content unless the new patch comes out.
This always happens to me. Like the last month before the next patch comes out, I get kind of really bored with the game. So, other than that, I'm starting to try. I'm really fucking trying to start up Story of Seas and Trio Towns because I've been wanting to play that, but every chance I get, I kind of look at it and go like, I'll get to it in a second. And next thing I know, I got something else to fucking do.
Well, maybe you'll get to it on vacation.
Also, we had an eclipse of some sort, but I didn't really pay much attention to that. I was at an eclipse where we were in totality. That shit is spooky. 12 noon, the sun's high up in the sky, and then all of a sudden... and then we had to sacrifice a bunch of people to get it over with, but... Thankfully,
human sacrifice doesn't solve anything.
Who said anything about humans?
Thankfully, that was in England, so they can't press charges with me over here. Anyway, that's it for me.
All right, Galix.
We didn't get much of an eclipse up here. We're too far north. It was about 50%, so it was still too bright to get any of the neat side effects. But this week is interesting for me too because I am taking some time off for work because my parents are on vacation and I'm taking care of the house. And our cat gets kind of bummed out when there aren't any people around, so... So there's that. It's been going pretty well so far, though. Although this is only a few days in, so I haven't started talking to the walls yet. Video game-wise, I've gotten to the final level of Sonic Mania. Yes, on my first playthrough. Yes, I'm really bad at Sonic.
But have you gotten 12 game overs yet?
Probably.
Oh God.
Other than that, I took like 4 tries on Lava Reef Zone. Other than that, I've been trying to play Splatoon 2 because there's a Splatfest upcoming, and I'm curious about this new update for ARMS that's coming out, what with the clown lady, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. I'm like, the clown lady stirs up mixed feelings in me.
I wonder why.
That can inflate, and we're just starting to wonder, Nintendo, are you just hitting on everyone's fetishes now?
Yeah, her weapons look interesting, but something clown fetish, something inflation.
Yeah, I'm like, are you? They're not going to be satisfied until they corner the deviant art market.
Oh God.
All right, moving forward. Twilight, you go next.
Let's see now. Well, the weather's been nice and miserable around here. A nice mixture of hot days and rainy days with all the humidity. School started back and it hasn't been all that bad concerning morning traffic. And let's see now. Then, of course, Monday, me and my coworkers watched the eclipse. It was all right. It didn't get totally dark over here. I had to be in Hopkinsville for that.
You didn't stare directly at the sun, did you?
Of course not. No, we had those eclipse glasses, and we passed them around between each other so we could look at it. And since there's no games for me to play for review this week, I've been continuing on with Atelier Sophie and the occasional multiplayer sessions with Borderlands 2. And
yeah, we're in kind of an odd situation this week since neither of the games we're reviewing got more than 2 codes.
Yeah.
It happens. You know,
Mhm.
like anyway.
And that's it from me.
So I guess it's my turn.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I lived in part of the area that had the total eclipse, but it decided to rain just before it happened, so we didn't get to see jack shit except for the everything go really dark and the street lamps come on. Yeah,
Are
so
they light sensitive?
yeah, we have ones that when it gets dark they turn on. Cause yeah, that's a whole lot easier than the broken system we had before.
Where they don't turn on when they're supposed to turn on?
Yep. Like I think they used to have them put on timers, but the timers thing kept failing, and like one part of the block would be on like in the middle of the day and then turn off at night, and it was just weird and dumb.
Yeah, that's, useful.
Um, I also saw another doctor about my knee, and he's basically telling me what the other one was: go to physical therapy, but I still can't afford that because it's kind of hard to throw around like almost $400 a week on physical therapy and eat.
Hmm. Well, I mean, sometimes that is the answer, and it's just you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. So I don't know what I'm gonna do about that.
That's unnerving.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was real close to punching a doctor in the face, not gonna lie.
Jeez.
Um Also Saturday, my mom got a new kitten.
Yay.
Oh boy, kittens.
Yeah, her name is Garcia. I think Calico is what they said she is. I don't really know, but she was kind of wanting to hide in mom's room for like the first couple days, and now she's all like trotting around, like, "Oh hi, look at me, I cuddle with you."
As they do.
hmm So yeah, other than that, not a whole lot in gaming news. Still been playing Sonic Mania. I beat the Sonic and Tails playthrough. Then I went back and got all the emeralds. I'm almost done with Knuckles, and then I started for the kicks, started doing Tails because oh man, Tails. Also, I rented from GameFly Final Fantasy Explorers, and it's basically what I thought it was going to be: Monster Hunter Final Fantasy Edition. It's actually pretty good, like shockingly. But of course, I'm also a Monster Hunter fan, so
Hmm.
I heard the previous game, Four Warriors of Light, was pretty good too.
I have not played that one.
That was an original DS release though.
Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, other than that, I got nothing.
Okay, I guess it's my go.
Yep.
Let's see. Engaged in some personal business this week that I can't talk about, as it's well personal. It is that thing that I've mentioned before, and we'll leave it at that. Uh, I know it's all mysterious, but it's the kind of thing that I'm just not going to talk about on air.
Yeah.
At least not.
It's one of those things that can't really be talked about till it's over, and then even only if you want to.
Yeah, and like,
But it's not over until it's over.
yeah. Shockingly, the process has been pretty smooth, exceptionally smooth, in my case apparently. Um, anyway, moving things along. Yeah, it's been a odd week for our game review since you know the schedule happened to line up on two games that had two codes each. It's
I'm
we've
still
got,
concerned that one of these games, if I play it, might put me on FBI watch list.
there's a lot of concern for that. I'm like, there's more concern than you think. Like, yeah, Maria Chronica or Chronicle. I need to fix that. It how do I put this? It made use of features of its original platform.
Oh no.
Which
Like-
was
Rubbing, touching, poking.
ah,
Like, I think you can see where this is going.
Yeah, this was a 3DS release or DS release?
Vita.
Oh, Vita. Oh.
Yeah, I'm like,
Oh no.
yeah, we'll talk more about it with the actual review. But I'm like, not only is it, is it the typical creepiness of this, it's also not implemented very well because you're doing it with the control sticks and it just feels awkward.
Does it have mouse support or is it?
It does, but like mouse support kind of sucks.
Mm.
No, it wouldn't register my inputs as precisely as the controller did.
Yeah.
So, no. Let's see. I guess this is kind of a theme this week, unintentionally, but yeah, I too have to look after my parental unit's place this weekend because she's going out of town until she's leaving Thursday and coming out Monday. Forget where she's going, but got to make sure that everything's taken care of there, and the usual kind of deal. And outside of that, that's the news. So merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the evening, and joining us for I don't know the 10th time.
I think I've forgotten at this point.
Yeah.
Regardless, you've already probably won your free internet Sunday by now.
And we'll probably have you on again in a few months as it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that at the end. But joining us once more is John Pickett from MangaGamer.
And hello, and it's good to be back.
Indeed. So we're doing things a little different. For those who've listened to the other MangaGamer reviews, we usually center it around one title and go into depth on that, and then touch on other things. But this time it's a little more generalized because, well, there were a whole lot of games announced at Otakon, and I wanted to make sure we got through them all. There's 7 titles here, so.
Yeah, and I think if you count Anime Expo, there's like another 5 or 6 on top of that. Did we get a chance to talk about those last time?
I don't believe we did.
No, I don't think so. So, yeah, we have a lot of titles to get through.
So buckle up, boys and girls.
So, should we start with Anime Expo or should we go to Otakon?
Probably better to start with the earliest announcements and then move forward.
All right. Well, let's see. Where to start? I guess with the first thing on the page here, the Umeneko Question Arc Physical Edition.
Correct. That was we had that go up for pre-orders on Anime Expo weekend, and we had the physical copies available for sale at Otakon, so they should be shipping by now to anyone that's ordered them or anyone that orders them after today. And this the physical edition is all 4 chapters of the first 4 chapters of the game, which are known as the question arcs. It's all 4 of those on one disc.
And is it does the package come with any bonuses?
It comes with a Steam key.
So it's just like it in a physical edition then.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the game on disc, so you don't even need Steam to play it, but it also has a Steam key in case you want to play it on Steam as well.
Fairly standard packaging. Better than usual, actually, because a lot of game releases these days.
Yeah, it's a cardboard box with a Steam key card in it.
Yeah, or it's got a disc in it, but it's literally like the executable, and that's it.
Yeah. Like Final Fantasy XIV, it was the first Stormblood. It was just the launcher on the disc, but you still need to put the code in for it.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Well, it's also an MMO, so.
Yeah. I remember when I first installed 14 and had to spend hours downloading everything.
Yep. That's why I have that saved in another part of my hard drive. I'm not doing that crap again.
How big is Final Fantasy 14?
I think it's nearing 50 gigs.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
Again, I wouldn't want to download that again.
Oh. No, I can understand why. Like, I mean, that's the size of like a modern day AAA game.
I'm gonna say that was smaller than my Skyrim folder by the time I was done modding it.
Yeah.
Doing that. Anyway, moving on. We've got Princess Evangeline W. Happiness from Moonstone.
Yeah, it's Princess Evangel Double Happiness.
Ah.
The W is read as double. For
This is a thing that happens in Japanese because W has a double in it.
Yeah.
See Kamen Rider, other things.
But essentially, Evangel Double Happiness is actually out and available on sale already, both on our website and Steam. And it's essentially a fan disc. So it's, if people aren't familiar with fan discs, it's basically because the game did really well in Japan, they created a whole another game with lots of extra content based around the characters of the original. So this has it has extra epilogues to each of the original Evangel heroines' stories. And in addition to each of those epilogues, it also adds new routes for some of the side characters like Ruriko and others who didn't get an actual full route in the original game.
Like, I don't really have much to add on this one because I don't think we've played Princess Evangeline.
Yeah, I don't think
It's
so.
been a very popular title for us. It's sort of a slice of life moe game. So it's focused on the cute girls and their interactions with each other and the main hero. The base premise of the game is that the girls are part of this all girls school that is getting in trouble in terms of being able to keep running, and so they are contemplating integration as a means to get an influx of students and keep the school running. So it's the main hero is sort of the trial case for integrating a male student into the school, where you have all these, prim and proper women who have, for the most part, not been exposed to the rest of the world for so much. And so there's a lot of fun interactions there.
Like, and it's all ages, I'm guessing.
If you buy it from our website, you'll be able to enjoy the adult scenes as well. If you get it on Steam, the original on Steam is all ages only. Double Happiness, if you buy on Steam, you can actually go to our website and get a patch to reinstall the adult content that comes with it.
Like, all right. Moving forward, also from Moonstone is Magical Marriage Lunatics.
Yes, this was one of our newer announcements. It's by the same artist that did Princess Evangel, so we're hoping that fans are going to enjoy that as well. It's another sort of slice of life, except this one, the premise is more, well, it's a battle royale for the man's hand in marriage. Basically, the idea is that when he was younger, he was constantly sort of spirited away to different worlds, and now all the women that he sort of spent time with and promised marriage to while he was traipsing about from world to world have showed up in his world, and they're all fighting to see who actually gets to wed him.
As you do.
Yeah,
like,
and there's I think there's like a vampire, there's a succubus, there's kitsune. I believe one is an actual goddess, and I think one is a magical girl. So it's also fans that actually enjoyed Shuffle, either the anime or the game that we released a long time ago. This was Magical Marriage Lunatic should be up their alley as well.
Yeah, God, Shuffle. There's a name that takes me back.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
What
I
was
wonder-
that? Early 2000s?
Sounds about right.
I guess it more
Yeah.
depends on which version, because when there are two versions.
I know we released the game around 2008-ish. 2000, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Jeez. Like in the anime adaptation was around that time, if I'm remembering correctly. Later. Like I said, it's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sorry if these are a bit on the brief side, but we really do have a lot to go through.
Oh, no problem. Yeah.
That's more for the audience who might be listening. Like, you know, anyway, from Alice Soft, we've got how do you pronounce it?
Ivinical.
Yeah, Evenical. Okay,
Yeah, Ivinical.
Evenical.
Yeah, it's so this is what like as we said at Anime Expo, if you've ever played Senran Kagura and wished the artist did porn, well he did. And that's Ivinical is one of them.
Oh God!
I thought the answer to that was Valkyrie Drive. Like,
The answer
Well,
is
no, but-
yes.
Like I said, Ivinical is an adult RPG by Alice Soft, so it has a full 3D world with dungeons and monsters and battles and all that fun that you expect from an RPG. The artwork's by the Senran Kagura artist, and there's plenty of sex. The idea with Ivinical is that in this specific world, monogamy is strictly enforced by the goddess of the world. You are either
Oh my.
monogamous or you become an outcast, and you no longer have the ability to grow or create or produce anything. And so outcasts, in order to survive, have to either steal or kill or take it from other people. I think there's a couple other really bad things you can do to become an outcast, but the hero's main dilemma is that he grew up with twins and he loves them both. So
Oh, God.
and so the goddess's one exception to the rule of monogamy is that if you are a hero, you are allowed to marry as many women as you want. So he sets
I'm
out
sure
to be
hero is
so
a
he
very
can get the twins.
specific thing.
Yeah, it is. It's the heroes are it's like your traditional RPG heroes, those who like go out and defend the world and the nations from evil forces and monsters and villains. So yeah, that's the main protagonist's motivation, is to go out and become this great hero so that he can marry and have sex with both twins. And of course, along the game, he meets several other women, and his harem kind of expands.
Because of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So where's the fun with it if you don't get spoils?
I'm kind of reminded of one of the games we're reviewing this week. Like, indeed, what kind of RPG are we talking about here? Like a standard JRPG, a first-person dungeon crawler, or something else?
So like I said, there's a 3D world map. The view's top down, so I think it's probably a standard JRPG from that. It's not like Skyrim or those type of RPGs where it's super open world. You can explore a lot to some extent. There are certain quests. It sort of guides you in where you want to go by quests. And in towns, you'll get like different side quests and missions where they want you to go out and do certain things, and that sort of helps guide the exploration. But you do have some freedom to explore the 3D world itself. In terms of the systems, the battle mechanics, yeah, it's a turn-based RPG. You have skills, you have attack, defense, equipment, those sort of standard features.
I suppose I need to breach the question. Are any of the, let's just say, sexual mechanics integrated into the gameplay?
I don't believe so. Which is,
So they're
which
more like
actually-
just cutscenes that happen on the side. They're not like mini games or anything like that.
No, the
All
age
right.
scenes aren't mini games or anything like that. Yeah, they're their own exclusive scenes that you win as you play through and complete missions and things like that.
Hmm. And I'm assuming that this is going to have the dual release structure. If
By dual
Steam-
Like an all
Only-
ages and a adult only version.
It will definitely be available on MangaGamer. We don't know if it's going to be eligible for Steam yet. Last time we spoke to Steam, it didn't seem like this would be a good fit, but there have been some recent releases on Steam that make me question what we've been told. So,
I'm like, I could understand that.
Yeah.
I'm like, once again, I'm looking at one of the games we're reviewing this week.
yeah. Part of me wonders if Steam just doesn't realize those games are being released. So I'm not exactly sure where we stand right now.
I think to some extent, Steam doesn't always pay close attention to
It's not just.
the content exclusions that they've made rules about.
I wouldn't be surprised if it also matters from, say, developers and from developer to developer. But I mean, I feel like we're getting into a whole nother area.
I'm pretty sure
So-
we
Yeah,
could do
that
that
could probably be
topic of
its own whole
discussion.
podcast.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. Anyway, moving forward from Hermit, we've got the most forbidden love in the world. I'm
Yes.
like, with this being visual novels and anime, the most forbidden love could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
So this one is actually sort of it's actually a very classic title. The author went on to write White Album 2, Saikano, those sort of stories. So fans of those works will probably enjoy this when they get a chance to play it.
So the forbidden love is one with a happy ending if you wrote Saikano.
Yeah, it's the main character is actually an older man, and if I remember right, he's laid off, and he ends up getting invited to this dorm by one of the people who run it. There he eventually ends up, finding another job. But it's the game itself focuses more on the slice of life and the interactions between him and the other residents of the boarding house. So it's like there's the daughter that runs it. There's his new coworker that lives there. There's a young neighbor that's looking out for the young girl that's running the boarding house. And there's also the young girl's homeroom teacher living there as well.
Gotta
So
say, that doesn't sound like the most forbidden love in the world.
It's like I said, it's more the most forbidden tends to be more. I think is referring more to the main character and the girl that's running it. There's a rather large age gap there.
Well, I suppose a question is this like a university, college, or is it high school?
Like I said, I think the main character is about 28, getting into his 30s, and I think the young daughter who sort of left to run the boarding house after he's offered a place in it, I think has just finished high school, so she's like 18. So there, like I said, there's a significant age gap there.
Yeah, it's like getting in the ballpark there, but I'm like, at least she's not a high school student. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right. Onward we go with from Circus Space Live.
Yes. So this is actually a brand new title. that we announced first. We're planning to do a simultaneous release, actually very soon here in the near future. It's something that I think fans of games like Hyperdimension Neptunia or Idolmaster will enjoy. The basic idea of Space Life, premise wise, is that in the future, everyone has sort of uploaded themselves to NetSpace, and so everyone's sort of living in this digital world, and there are different idols that compete to sort of win followers and win, um, expand their sort of section, their area of NetSpace, and each of the idols are basically based off of and parodies of the different internet browsers. So you have
Oh boy.
yeah. So the main character, the blonde girl, is or Internet Explorer. The one fox looking girl she's based off Firefox. There's the brown skinned girl, I believe, is based off of Sapphire, and then there's sort of the cat eared girl that's based off Chrome, and the sort of dark horse is based on Lunascape, which is actually it's sort of a popular Japanese browser that's rather niche.
So clearly, Internet Explorer is best girl.
Yeah.
Kind of fine.
No.
I wonder how the creators of this game thought about Microsoft Edge.
But yeah. So it's the game itself it's basically a fun like parody of an idol competition. It's all the idols are the internet browser idols are competing in sort of different games and competitions as part of this competition. So there's like things like the confession competition, or like the cooking competition, and so it's that sort of uh, it's basically a comedy. It's poking fun at the browsers, and it's just a lot of fun.
Hmm. Yeah, you can definitely see where the Neptunia connection comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I suppose as long as they don't live in the world of Lindos or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so finally from the Anime Expo set, we've got a new project from Itaro Hinoe.
Yes. So this is Koropokoro, which I know it's a very
Those
it's
are the
hard.
I knew really tiny people, right?
Yes. I'm surprised someone actually knows that before I got a chance to explain. Yes, they're sort of a fairy sprite in Ainu cultures where the name comes from. And that is actually what the game is about, is sort of the race of the fairies, the Koropokuru, and specifically the main heroine who sets out because she's sort of enamored with this romantic tale that the clan has of a Koropokuru who went out, went out away from the clan and found this magic hammer that allows her to become human and fall in love with the humans in the world. And so she sets out to try and try and do that herself, to try and find the magic hammer, become human, and fall in love with, a human man. But as soon as she's like wandering through Akihabara, she ends up, being the dumb tourist that runs into this event that a failing maid cafe is setting up to put on in order to keep the cafe itself from going under. And so she feels she feels responsibility for that and offers to work at the maid cafe that the man runs. And from there, it follows the daily events and relations between this man she's helping, her attempts to find this magic hammer while he's trying to keep the maid cafe afloat. And ultimately, there's going to be a lot of funny scenes in there because sort of what enables her to function is that she has the ability to change her size from her natural state to her to sort of human size, but she can't always maintain that.
So that's what the hammer is for?
Yeah, the hammer's to make her permanently human. And so that's sort of the general gist of the game. As it progresses, though, I can promise that there will be turn of events that that fans of Key are very familiar with. So you can expect to have your heartstrings pulled and crying a bit by the end. But yeah, Koropokoro is actually our company's sort of first attempt at developing a game ourselves. So we're going to be partnering with Itaru Inoue of, Clanad, Air, Kanon fame as the character designer for this new title. We do plan to kickstart it later on. We don't have exact dates set for the Kickstarter yet, but we're definitely looking forward to producing this title.
And
Well, it's nice to have an individual or original project after all the work you've done with localization and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be Kickstarter or Indiegogo?
It'll be Kickstarter.
Let's see. Moving on to the Otakon section. Starting off, we've got from Kalima 8.
Call me at 8. Yeah, Fashioning Little Miss Lonesome. So, Fashioning Little Miss Lonesome is our first adult otome title. So for those not familiar, an otome game is a visual novel that's more generally targeted at women. To get into specifics, an otome title is generally the main character is female and the interests that are available tend to be male.
We also call these reverse harems.
Some people do, yes. But yeah, so Fashioning Little Miss Lonesome is one that's been in production for a while with us. It's available for pre-order now, and we'll actually be releasing it in 2 weeks. So people can order it today on our site, on Steam. We will have a patch available for the Steam version to allow people to add the adult content back in. But Fashioning Little Miss Lonesome follows the main heroine is basically a reclusive, shut-in, anti-social girl, and like to the point that the very first choice in the game is whether or not you want to get out of bed. And if you fail to get out of bed, you get a bad end.
Aww.
Like,
But you can choose to not get out of bed. That's.
I think I've made this decision in life.
Yes. But yeah, so the game sort of kicks off and starts when these two guys meet her. These two guys are both in sort of the fashion industry, and they realize that with a makeover, she could be this really great model. And it's them trying to get her to go along with their, attempts to sort of, redo her from the ground up and bring out, to make the diamond shine. Then bring out all the charm and natural beauty that she has that she's never bothered with. Yeah. And there's a lot of fun interactions. One of the guys is more of a sadistic man. One of the guys is more of a masochistic one. So there's a lot of fun interactions between both of them, between her and the different characters. And if I remember correctly, I believe there's actually one fun ending that ends up being her sort of manipulating them into serving as models for her BL fanfics.
I am not shocked at this. I'm like an Otome game with BL elements. Yeah, I'm like, perish the thought.
But yes.
Right. So, and our next title is actually a thing we featured on the show before. It's Supipara Chapter 2.
Yes, we are proud to announce that the funding goal for Chapter 2 has finally been reached, and so we're actually going to be able to release the second chapter now, and we also put up the new funding goal amounts are available on MangaGamer.org/Minori for those who want to look and see where progress is towards chapter 3, 4, and 5.
And
So,
what's the progress? What's the progress bar on the next chapters?
So chapter 3, the goal is set at 350,000 between all sales of all of Minori titles. So chapter 2 was just funded at 200,000. So we're looking for basically 150 earned from sales of like Supipara and our upcoming release of Trinoline. Those will both go towards the funding goal in addition to the Minori titles that are already out and available both on our store and on Steam.
And how closely are you working in conjunction with Minori on this?
We are keeping abreast with them pretty well. So chapter 1 and 2 are the only chapters that were ever actually released in Japan. So those were the only 2 chapters Minori managed to complete before they sort of had to scrap the project due to its poor release in Japan. So at this point, that's part of why, but they already had the script and everything done for chapter 1 and 2. So that's part of why we were able to already have the translation complete for chapter 2 as we've made this announcement. But starting from chapter 3 onwards, the releases will be brand new, and they will be released in English first before they're released in Japan.
And what's the timeline look like on the release?
We probably hope to have chapter 2 out within the next few months. I think there's a little bit of editing left to go on it, and then the Minori needs to finish putting the scripts together, and we need to run it through our quality assurance before we can actually set a release date and slot it in for release. But it's definitely it's still, having the translation done is still quite a ways away. Quite a lot of progress already on it.
Okay. We'll probably end up talking about this in a future interview installment, especially given that we covered the first one.
Yes, and I will say chapter 2 focuses on a new character. Each of the chapters actually, sort of in the original design, are meant to focus on different characters in the game itself.
So you don't necessarily have to have played the first one to play the second one?
You don't have to, but you will probably want to.
Mm-hmm.
There's still, like I said, there's still sort of the overarching story that ties it together is built on the progression from each chapter to each chapter. The episodes themselves, they are standalone, but the game itself builds through each of those episodes. If I'm making any sense to you guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, like there's certain elements and aspects that are introduced in chapter 1, and you'll see those developed through each chapter, even though it's focusing on a different heroine. Things like the witch in chapter 1, the wishes that she grants and the cost for those wishes, her goals. It's, yeah, I don't want to go into spoilers too much right now, but I will say there's definitely a lot of intricacies that our translator had to pay very close attention to when going from chapter 1 to chapter 2.
Indeed. Right, so moving forward, have to pick up the pace here a bit. The Spirit Master of Vita
Retarnia. Yeah.
From Lunasoft.
Correct. So this is another sort of classic 3D dungeon RPG. You have the 5 different heroines are the spirits that you command. They each represent different elements, and you fight your way through the dungeons to defeat the bosses at the final end and sort of save the world.
Right. Is it? I do wish you could go more into depth, but we are getting low on time. So, and we've got another 4 games here. So
Yeah.
From Parade, we've got Room Number 9. This looks like it's a boys' love thing.
Yes. So for those not familiar, Parade is the developers of No Thank You, which we're selling on our site, and Room Number 9 is the second title developed by them. The premise for Room Number 9 is, well, for those who are familiar with our release of Euphoria, it's going to sound very familiar or similar, but even though there are differences though. But essentially, the premise is that these 2 guys are best friends. They are not actually gay. They are friends, and they are both straight, but they are kidnapped on their way to a summer vacation and locked in this room where they are, in order to make it out alive, they're forced to choose whether to physically injure and harm the one man or inflict emotional degradation and sort of sexual injury on the other. And so like I said, for people familiar with, I mean, that premise might also sound familiar to people that have seen Saw, and it's that kind of psychological horror in a way.
It's like gay Saw. No, I'm kidding. It's not like Saw.
Kind of.
Not something you want on the ad copy, though.
No.
But disturbing.
Yes, it is. Like I said, it's very well written, and like I said, it explores the psychological aspects of it very well. So it's a very intriguing and visceral game to play.
I'm like, sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Anyway, next release from Yurin is A Kiss of the Petals, Maidens of Michael.
Yes.
This is presumably a Yuri title.
Very much so. So, fans of basically, I don't know how many listeners are familiar with the A Kiss for the Petals series, but originally, Kiss for the Petals was a series of doujin games. And in each of the doujin games, they focused on one Yuri couple in the school, St. Michael. And Maidens of Michael was the developer's first release as an official professional developer. And what it does is it combined all of the couples from the original games into one game. Dealt with it doesn't redo their stories, but it picks up from the stories and includes their stories and their relationships and follows up with those different couples and their interactions with each other, while also introducing a new couple, which is the same couple that we featured in our earlier release, A Kiss for the Petals, Remembering How They Met.
I don't really have much to add because, once again, I don't think I've ever played a entry in this series.
It is very much vanilla Yuri in a strong sense. It's focused. The Kiss for the Petals series is and always has been focused on the relationships between the girls, and it actually it specifically goes out of its way to try and avoid a lot of the tropes that are traditionally associated with many girl on girl adult titles. So it tries to stay away from things like having the girls explicitly, use toys on each other or finding substitute dicks for the scenes. And it focuses more on, what girls can actually do with each other and the romantic elements and the emotional attachments. So, and it's a lot of those are the reasons why it's become such a celebrated series.
Yeah, I've definitely seen those other things, like sometimes literally. It's like name names. Anyway, moving forward, we're almost through the gauntlet. We've got Sengoku Rance from Alisoft.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the first new Rance title that we announced at Otakon is Sengoku Rance. This is somewhat of a departure from the earlier Rance titles in the sense that Sengoku Rance is a grand strategy game. It's basically after the end of Rance 6, Rance himself moves on with Syl and ends up in the nation of Nippon, which is Alisoft in the Rance World's equivalent of Japan. He's there to enjoy the hot springs, maybe enjoy the women because he's Rance, but his boasting gets the attention of Oda Nobunaga, who then approaches him and asks for his help in restoring the lands that Oda Nobunaga has lost. And all Oda Nobunaga wants is to actually get her lost territory back. But Rance, being Rance, decides to conquer and unify all of Nippon. And so as a player, it's very much, like I said, it's a grand strategy game. You have to focus on managing your resources, your troops. The player themselves has complete freedom and choice over how they want to conquer Japan, which nations and regions to attack first, which to try and conquer first, and the order that you target the nations determines the story and how the game plays out. Like if you attack one nation after winning over one heroine, you'll see different interactions with them than you would if you had attacked that nation first on your own and didn't have anyone with you. And so those sort of the different combinations and things like that allow for a lot of
replay value.
There's a lot of replay value. I think I've heard of one plan that has played it like 56 times or something.
That is a staggering amount of times.
But yeah, so there's a lot of different combinations, and yeah, it's anyone who loves grand strategy games like Civ or Total War will definitely love this.
And junctioning off of that, you've also got Rance Quest Magnum.
Yes.
which appears to be the sequel to this.
It's Ron's Quest Magnum is the next Ron's game in the Ron's series. So it picks up after what is considered the canon ending for Sengoku Ron's. And again, Ron's has left Nippon and returned to the mainland, and he's planning to enjoy his vacation when he's struck with a curse and is now and because of the curse, he's now faced with the dilemma where he can no longer have sex with women under level 35. And if he doesn't have sex with women every so often, he will turn gay. And Rance is not going to stand for that.
That sure is a curse.
Well-
So that begins his quest to travel the entire continent to find and bed every girl over level 35
Like,
that he can find.
so
and
what happens if he has sex with a girl under 35? Is it the same fate, or
He can't. You physically cannot have sex with any women under 35. It is impossible because of the curse. And gameplay mechanics wise, that actually plays into the mechanics because every time he has sex with the girl, their level is reset, but their stats aren't. So the more you raise their level, so the more you level them up and have sex with them, the stronger they get over time.
Because of like Disgaea mechanics.
Yeah. And so it's a lot of the game itself. Basically, has you choosing from all the different quests that are available at the time. Different quests will unlock new quests, and it's sort of that sort of chain of you go as Rance, you pick a quest, you go out, you complete the quest, and it's that sort of repetition of questing, and the quest systems and the battle systems is your typical RPG, but it's there's less of a map system than there are in previous Rances.
Right then. Okay. I think that's it as far as the announcement sets. But before we conclude, I suppose we should ask, what game are you working on personally these days?
I believe I mentioned it last time, but I'm still working on maggot baits.
Yeah, I remember this. Like,
Yeah.
This is not a title you forget.
No, I had fun discussing certain scenes with many of the fans that came up to our booths at Anime Expo and Otakon. And while I had fun, our staff were begging me to stop by the end of the weekend because they had each heard it about 4 or 5 times by that point.
Right. I can imagine. All right. I think that's about it for this time. Wish we could continue on, but we are out of time at this point. Though, as always, we extend the customary new invitation for October 11th.
Okay.
Okay. We'll see you then. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the MangaGamer overview.
They sure are gaming those mangas.
and other things now, like quite a few of RPGs in the mix.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of RPGs coming out now between the newest announcements.
Mm-hmm. And if you missed anything, it's on the MangaGamer website at mangagamer.org/announcements.
Mm-hmm.
As always, John, it was good having you on the program.
It was good being here with you. Hope you all have a good week, and thank you for inviting me on. Fans out there listening, you can pick up any of the games we discussed. They'll be available on our website, mangagamer.com. our upcoming release is, like I said, in 2 weeks, is going to be Fashioning Little Miss Lonesome. And then we have a bunch more titles coming after that. So check us out on Twitter, Facebook.
Indeed.
We'll see you around.
All right, Betty Fan, play us to the next segment. All right, welcome to the topic of discussion portion of the broadcast. So, there's a lot of anniversaries actually going on right now. Let's see. I think last week was the 10th anniversary of BioShock. This week was the 30th anniversary of the US release of The Legend of Zelda. A bit specific there, but Nintendo brought it up.
Bioshock being 10 years old makes me feel old.
We'll actually be 10 years old next year.
What, BioShock?
No, our company, MangaGamer.
Oh, yeah. 2008? Anyway, let's see. Nintendo released a 25th anniversary trailer of Kirby. I'm not sure if it's the actual 25th anniversary release of Kirby's Dream Land. I don't think it is. It's just Nintendo put that trailer out the other day. But none of those are what we're talking about tonight because we've talked about those games in past episodes. And there's another anniversary I wanted to highlight because, well, it's a game that's really seminal to my gameplay experience as a teenager, and that's GoldenEye 007. This Friday marks the 20th anniversary of that game. There's another time is passing by a moment. And where to start with this? First of all, show of hands, so to speak, of who's actually played the. First of all, we're talking mostly about the 1997 release, not the 2010 remake.
I played it I never owned it, but I played it a few times at various friends' houses and stuff.
I've never played any of it.
Gollix has kind of got the same experience I had, where just played it at a friend's house a bunch and had fun with the multiplayer. That's for certain.
In my defense, N64 cartridges were really expensive.
Same as Gollix and Ogre. I've never owned it, but I've played it.
I managed to get it. It was released a few weeks after the birthday, so managed to have the money to get GoldenEye 007. Believe me, I was rather happy that I did because back in 1997, I only had an N64. Like I had sold off my Super NES and all the games to help get an N64 because I really, really wanted Super Mario 64. And by the time GoldenEye came out, it was like, really starving for games. Like you have not experienced a game drought until you've experienced something like the N64's first year.
Or if you're a Nintendo fan, you probably have.
It's like maybe the Wii U era was as bad, but nothing
the
was
Wii
true.
U still
I guess the 3DS at least could play DS games.
Well, I was gonna say at least the Wii U still had games coming out on the Virtual Console.
Yeah, I'm like, here's how bad it was for me. I was desperate to play War Gods just because it was a new fucking game. Now, it's like, a shit tier 3D fighter, absolutely fucking terrible. Hell, I remember I was thinking of buying the game, and the fucking Funko Land store clerk talked me out of it. I swear to God, this is true. He talked me out of buying this.
Is that legal?
Apparently it is. I'm like the one honest store clerk.
That man deserves a medal.
Saving people from War Gods is a commendable effort. So, anyway, that's kind of the situation, and Nintendo 64 owners were in well, like all of 1997, really all throughout the lifespan. But that's more on the N64. GoldenEye was a very big fresh of air, um, in a couple of you know in a couple of ways. Like GoldenEye is considered to be like the great leap forward in terms of console FPS.
It almost defined what console FPSs were for at least 4 years.
Something like that. I'm like, it never like I won't like GoldenEye. I don't think ever codified the FPS genre like say Halo did, but it still left its mark. Like for example, it gave us the sniper rifle. Yeah, I'm like GoldenEye was apparently like the first game the sniper rifle appeared in. I don't know how accurate that
Complete with zooming scope.
Yes. I mean, if it didn't have I mean, that's kind of the point of a sniper rifle, but yeah, believe me, that alone is kind of important considering how prolific sniper rifles got in FPSs and even like third-person shooters. But like GoldenEye wasn't like set a few things apart. Like GoldenEye wasn't like the first great FPS or even the first console FPS, even the first N64 console FPS. Oh no, that goes to Turok Dinosaur Hunter, which released a few months before. And there was even Doom 64, which always gets on that list of Doom ports, but is not actually a port of Doom. It's its own original game. But aside from that, like GoldenEye was considered to be such a breath of fresh air, not just because it showed you could do FPS games on consoles. How well it did is arguable because of your stance on the FPS genre. I suppose it helped that I really hadn't experienced FPSs with mouse and keyboard fully. It's a different set for like I played Wolfenstein and Doom, Quake and 3D, but I was never bothered by it. The control worked well enough for the age. Let's just say. These days, I absolutely can't stand playing FPSs with controllers. But it was a different time. Plus, options were a lot more limited. That being said, it was still the pre-dual analog controls, but you could still do the dual analog thing.
At least it had one analog. That was still pretty new at that point.
Yeah, but not a people knew that you could set up the control scheme to do the dual analog control thing. It was cumbersome because you literally had to have two N64 controllers.
See, the only game that I knew you could do that in was Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer.
Another one you could do it in was Robotron 64. Is fireworks going out in somebody's house?
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything.
I'm not hearing anything either.
Oh, weird. I keep hearing these popping noises. Anyway, yeah. So GoldenEye was a revolution, and most people probably know the multiplayer of GoldenEye, considered to be one of the top multiplayer experiences on a system known for its multiplayer. At least multiplayer of the age. Let's just, it's like N64 multiplayer hasn't aged well. That's more a symptom of its graphics and, split screen.
Still, it's better than having to try to do a LAN network with your consoles, and at least it had 4 actual controller ports, so you could connect 4 controllers to it without shelling out extra money for a multi-tap or something.
Yeah, you work with what you got. That was just how console multiplayer went in 1997, really before, the internet age. I mean, there were some attempts, and then there was the Dreamcast, but that's all over the top. You know, four-player split screen was the best you were going to get on a console of the age.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that looks pretty paltry compared to even like Doom on DOS. But for a console FPS, it was a revelation, and it worked. And there was a shitload of content.
Yeah, there were a lot of maps and stuff, and a lot of choices of characters to play as.
Yeah, and a lot
featuring such illustrious stars as male scientist and a character who was not actually in the movie that this game is named after.
Right.
I'm just giving it a hard time. There were actually a lot of options.
Yeah,
and a variety of amusing cheat codes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and there were a lot of multiplayer options, especially for a console FPS. Like one of my favorites with friends at the time were one-hit kills with like slaps or knives or some goofy shit like that.
Which is another thing that in Halo kind of is standard.
Yeah, and yeah, a lot of levels. And of course, you punch the person who picked Odd Job.
Because they made Odd Job tiny, because having a hat isn't enough of a gimmick on the N64.
Yeah, and then you further punch the asshole who spawn camped by the body armor.
He knew what he was doing. Punch.
Oh yes. I'm like, yeah, good times. Like I said, it may be the best multiplayer experience. Opinions differ. Like, some say it's GoldenEye, some say it's Smash Brothers, some say it's Mario Kart, some even say like Mario Party. The system was overflowing with multiplayer experiences. That much can be said. Mm-hmm. But GoldenEye, just didn't, have an amazing multiplayer for the time. It had a pretty robust single-player campaign, which is still pretty unique to this day, because honestly, I haven't seen a lot of FPS rip off the GoldenEye method of doing levels. There's probably reasons for it, but GoldenEye was objective-based missions.
Not just kill all the guys.
Right, and got to remember the context of the era. We're still coming off the FPS being called the Doom clone. Now,
in which the gameplay is pretty much kill all the guys.
Yeah, it's like kill all the guys, get the switch. You know the drill. Like, in fact, really that designation of Doom clone was being shattered right about now with games like GoldenEye that actually, showed more than the usual Doom style of gameplay. And in terms of GoldenEye, like it's doing a lot of unique shit, especially for a console. Like, I don't think any FPS game was doing specifically what GoldenEye was doing in the multiplayer set, but you already had games like Strife, which we reviewed for the show a while back. That was a 1996 almost action RPG made out of the Doom engine, for example. But GoldenEye, you go in and you have to not just kill all the guys. In fact, this was like one of the first games you could play where killing all the guys would have a mission failure. The facility mission where if you kill the scientists, if you kill enough scientists, you will have a mission failure. And
some of the guys are not bad guys. What? But how am I supposed to interact with them when all I have is gun?
And once again, not something that was I had seen that in a PC game called Blakestone in like '93, but never saw that in the in a console FPS or the more popular FPS games of the time. Like, you actually had to be a bit strategic in your shooting. it's also some of the scientists could be traitorous, or rather, you talk to them and they pull a pistol on you, then you can shoot them. Like, the point being, you could do a lot of stuff, and this being a James Bond game, you did things like hacking a satellite, getting documents, so on and so forth. Rescuing Natalia and making sure she doesn't get shot. Oh boy, that was fun. Like,
escort missions.
yeah, I'm like, oh fuck, escort protect missions. Here, she's got to hack the satellite, protect her ass from the incoming soldier brigade until she's done, and fail 3,000 times. Yeah, I'm like, I really fucking hated that mission. And another thing about the mission structure was the more difficult the mission, the more objectives you had to do. So, on the easy setting, you'd probably have like 1 or 2 objectives, and that's it. On hard mode, you'd have like 5 or 6, and yeah, some of them were not easy. Looking at you, train mission that I could never complete because I had to shoot very accurately with the N64 control pad. Yeah, I'm like, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the thing about console FPSs, because you're using a fucking stick. They're not the most accurate things. In fact, the reason why you're so accurate is a thing called auto fire or auto aim. Like, a lot of the aiming is being done for you. Like I said, it worked well enough in 1997, but I really wonder how well
it hasn't aged to the best.
I'm like, especially with N64 sticks. Like, I'll be honest, I think N64 sticks were pretty bad. Not just because they ground down pretty quickly, but they were stiff as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I remember going back to the N64 controller after I had played with the GameCube controller, and it's just like, god damn, this controller is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so like the overall point is, we had never really seen a game like GoldenEye done before, especially in terms of the console. And this was pretty much out of left field. Like, like GoldenEye was on the radar, but here's the thing: like, this was a game that was coming out 2 years after the movie, like, and it was a license, like. Like, licensed games don't have the highest of expectations. And, even Nintendo at the time considered it to be a B-tier game.
Yeah.
They had a very inexperienced development group on it. I'm like, and you can tell that they didn't have that much attention because they didn't seem to be all that restricted by the license holder.
Yeah, like, as of note, back in that day, if your licensed game didn't come out with the licensed movie or whatever, odds are you're probably getting it revoked.
Indeed.
And I mean, everyone expected the game to be bad anyway, but I mean, the generic licensed game, and if it didn't come out right when the movie did, then nobody would want to buy it.
Yeah, I'm like, I couldn't exactly say why Nintendo kept the project going, because like GoldenEye, like a lot of Rare games of that era, went through a lot of development process. Like, it originally was going to be the prototypical licensed game on the Super NES. That is to say, it was going to be a 2D action platformer. Like that was what you did with the movie tie-ins of the day.
Yeah.
I guess the James Bond Hop and Bop, that would be a great game.
Yeah, it's like, it probably would have been, decent given, Rare at the very least. But, it wouldn't have set the world on fire, given like, then it was moved over to the N64, where it was originally going to be a light gun game or an on-rail shooter. They specifically highlight Virtua Cop as an inspiration. and it's really good that that didn't happen because it's like the N64 never got a light gun. And playing rail shooters with fucking analog sticks.
I'd rather go through hell with canoe shoes on.
Like, we call that knife edge. That was an on-rail shooter released for the N64. It was terrible.
Who would have thought?
But yeah, so and it's not like they didn't have help on this project by the license holders. In fact, they actually got materials related to production and like set photos. So there's a lot of there's a lot of, I hesitate to use the term one-to-one geometry because we are talking about the N64 here, but that is basically what you got. Like, like there's a picture on Wikipedia that shows the actual film set and the video game, and it's pretty accurate. Graphics at the time, expectations put into focus here, and anyway, when GoldenEye came out, I certainly played the shit out of it. Not just because I had a lot less games and at the time. It's also, GoldenEye was a really great game. And I know it sounds like I'm beating up on it, when I say for the time and for the system, but I do have to put the larger perspective into focus here.
That was an era that, in general, has not aged well.
Yeah, it's like, N64 games, PlayStation 1 games, like 3D games of the era in general just, look bad today.
Yeah, like, people still hail Ocarina of Time as one of the greatest games ever, but if you look at the original N64 game, it doesn't age well. Especially compared to the...
Sprites age well, but polygons, no, they do not. Not at all.
There's a reason the updated re-releases of the N64 Zelda games are actually a good example of this, because if you just go play those, it looks the way you remember it looking.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back and play the actual originals, they look way worse.
Right. And the thing of it, it's not just the polygon count, it's the individual quirks of the system. Like the PlayStation, it's just not low poly counts, it's all the jaggies. In the N64 case, the graphics look like they were made out of fuzzy felt. Blurry. And that's because N64 games really hit heavy on the anti-aliasing, to the point where even virtual console re-releases, at least on the Wii U, the N64 emulation had some issues. I don't know why the games look that fucking dark. But, the Wii version, virtual console versions of N64 games looked better than the console because they didn't have the blurriness up to max. They turned down that Visine filter. And
they probably thought the anti-aliasing made it look smoother at the time.
They did, and they really wanted to they really didn't want the jaggy look of the PlayStation. They really hated that. In fact, like the anti-aliasing, the blurriness was actually a selling point, and of course the fogging. Like we're talking about N64 games. Oh, I hope you like fog. Like. Anyway, that aside, it's also like controls. Once again, this was from the era where you only had one analog stick, so it's gonna feel, you move with the arrows, or I think you could do it Turok style, like which was you moved with the buttons and you looked around with the analog stick. These are the kinds of things we had to do before that second analog stick showed up. And it's especially lamentable because GoldenEye never got a, let's say, a proper remastering. This is especially important because one was in the works about 10 years ago. That was Rare was developing a Xbox Live Arcade port of the game, with updated graphics and everything, kind of like the Perfect Dark remake or remastering that showed up on Xbox Live Arcade. The problem is, licensing. The problem with licensed games isn't just that they can be terrible. Is if you want to actually re-release them, if it's that rare, really, really good licensed game, they do exist.
Yeah, you need separate permission for the re-release.
Yeah,
and sometimes, forget not getting it okay. Sometimes the people you need permission from literally don't exist anymore.
Right. In the case of GoldenEye, so there were three parties. You had Activision, who were the license holders at the time. You had Microsoft, who owned the developer, and you had Nintendo, who actually owned the game. Like, they actually owned like the game, like code or something like that, or the audio visuals, or they were involved. And the whole remake got blown up because, Microsoft and Nintendo, very predictably, could not come to a financial arrangement. It's been speculated that this is because Nintendo wasn't very keen on the game getting remade and looking better than a potential virtual console release.
Well, no, they wouldn't want one of their best games to be put on a competitor's system.
Right.
Best of the flashback, whatever.
Yeah. It's actually shocking that this thing got as far as it did. Yeah. All things considered.
Like, in the rumors, it was ready to ship?
I've heard those, and it was definitely a thing. I've seen footage of it.
Yeah.
I think I posted that in the Skype window the other day. So it definitely existed. It just it couldn't get the re-release because there were too many parties involved. That's the nice thing about owning your own shit, or like Microsoft could can put out the Banjo games and Perfect Dark willy-nilly. And now with that in mind, I'm not sure if Nintendo commissioned it or or if they were just involved with the marketing. I'm not exactly sure how the Wii GoldenEye came about. I'll be honest, I've never played this game because at that point I didn't have a Wii, and the Wii wasn't really the platform of choice for games like this. The first-person shooter. In fact, I'm wondering if they used pointer controls. And I heard it worked well enough with the Pro controller, but people swear by using the pointer controls for FPS games. I've seen some footage, and I'll be honest, I was never turned on because there's a lot of modern gaming bullshit in this game. I'm like, it's not just the fucking quick time events, but oh god, why are there so many chest-high walls? Oh my god!
Didn't you hear those were new new special issue Q branch?
Yeah,
auto deploying chest-high wall.
Apparently said that they're all over the fucking place. God damn. Anyway, like I said, I was never impressed with it. Also, it never came to the PC for some reason, even though the other Bond games did. Quantum of Solace and Bloodstone. I guess Legends didn't. Maybe they did, but it's just eh. It obviously didn't have the same magic as the first GoldenEye because does anyone even really remember this thing? It seems to have been a decent game, but it's just not something that had the impact of the original game. I don't think you could ever recreate that.
Well, it's hard. The genre in general has advanced a lot since then.
Yes.
It's one of those things where something was groundbreaking at the time, and then it gets remade or localized in a new place or something, and it just seems like, at best, a rip-off or primitive form of all of the things that are actually based on it.
Or somebody does it better later on.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I think that'll about do it for the GoldenEye retrospective.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a groundbreaking game in its day and age, but I'm not. It's like not sure how well it would hold up in today's world. It's like even a few years ago, it just seemed to exist.
If they wanted to remake it again in order to do the same thing, it would have to be a proper, like, combination.
I suppose.
Like, around, like, Metal Gear Solid, like, 3, 4? And I don't know.
Anyway, that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Coming up on MSP, well, I don't know.
Sadly, we don't. I couldn't find a guest, so unless Mac found one last minute, then I don't know what we're talking about.
I'm sure current events won't come up at all.
He's a funny one.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. I mean, anyway, the week ahead, we do have a Tuesday interview this coming week. Yes, on August 29th, Mikhail Havari of House Mark is returning to the program. We're going to be talking about Matterfall, which released a couple weeks ago, as well as trying to remember the shooter. Hang on, I got it here. Next Machina, which we're actually reviewing next week. Let's see. And August 30th, we have Bradley Erickson of Bison Kings Game Studios. Apparently, that's a big thing in Wyoming. But we're going to be talking about their recently released title, Deadly Edge. Hopefully, we get some review codes by next week, because the game looks really interesting. Black and white affair, platform game. I'm remembering from the trailer. Anyway. And coming up on the reviews, we're doing Needhog 2 and Morio Chronicle this Sunday. So looks like we've got a full calendar as usual. And until MSP, I wish you good gaming.